goal is for me to help you have massive outcomes. So it's our job to communicate the breadth of our scope and expertise.
Look, right now, you're giving away a whole lot of stuff and people aren't ready, and it feels like a cycle that keeps going and going. And when will something pop up? But what if you could turn that upside down and you can get paid to land fractional engagements? Hey, listen, he's Dean. I'm Atiba. We're the growth engineers, and we're here for you fractionals. We're here to help you fractionals figure out how to structure your businesses and grow like crazy. So, Dean, is there a way to get paid to land fractional engagements?
What if there was? What if there was? Well, it's a big time loaded question, because obviously we know a way. We've talked about a way. This is a way that I use regularly. I did stumble across it somewhat, but it's evolved over time. So yeah, but before I answer that question, let's step back a little bit and talk about consultants. You've been a consultant. I've been a consultant. Consulting is great for a lot of reasons, but there's this thing that I call the revenue roller coaster when it comes to consulting work. You get a client, you struggle to get a client, but you get a client, and then you do the work. You're in implementation, man. You forget you have a life. You forget you have a family. You forget you have other clients in business, and you get buried. And then all of a sudden what happens is, poof, project ends and the roller coaster drops down the other end, and you're in this valley and you're like, oh man, I need another client. I better get back out and network again. And you hope for a referral, and you maybe land, and you go through this cycle of up and down and up and down. It's unpredictable.
Very.
And it's quite honestly, it's unhealthy because it's stressful. And so the thing I love about fractional engagements is that they're long-term, high-dollar, monthly recurring revenue. It's way more predictable. It's way more predictable. So personally, I like to have both. I enjoy the variety of consulting, but I love the consistency of fractional work. And that's what we want to teach is our audience. You've got options out there. So to answer your question, is there a way to get paid to land a fractional engagement? Yeah. And it ain't brain surgery, which is the best thing about it. So let's think about this, right? Let's say you've got a prospect. You're a consultant or a pending soon-to-be fractional, and you sit down with that client. What does the process usually look like, right? You do some discovery, right? And what do you do?
After you do discovery,
what would you do?
then usually you write some sort of proposal, and you're coming in, you're doing an assessment, and maybe there's an audit involved, right? And you're trying to get them to say, so you're trying to show the problem so that they'll pay you.
Yeah, exactly, right? You're trying to establish credibility, build some trust, show you've got some insight, and really show them that you can do the work. But you're doing it all for free. Maybe you've said, I've got this audit thing I do, and you sort of downplay it to the client, and it's $1,500. It's a one-time thing. It's worth it. Trust me, it's worth its benefit. You just devalued something that really would bring a ton of value if you position it differently. So my approach that I teach in my mastermind to do this is to get paid to land fractional engagements. And the way you do that is use what I call the Strategy-First Fractional Framework, which in essence is you go in and you have this initial conversation, this discovery call, if you will, and you gather all the stuff, the information. You kind of understand the problem you're trying to solve. We talked about this in the last episode. If you haven't heard about current state, future state framing, go on back to the last episode and listen to that. But the goal with during discovery is to understand kind of where they're at, what problem are you going to help them solve, and where do they want to be? What's the outcome? What happens 99% of the time is that consultant, that fractional, starts sharing their wisdom. Well, we could do this and you could do that. And if you try this, and you're giving away everything for free, and they don't do anything with it. They don't take action on it. And our job is to help them take action. So what I recommend is you start, assuming they're not ready to hire you on the spot. Let's assume that. Because sometimes they are, but oftentimes they're not. You start with a paid strategy engagement, 30 days, 60 days, depending on the type of work you do. And in that strategy engagement, you're going to use your paid audit, your paid assessment, you're doing your research, developing a really thought out and cohesive strategy to solve the problem. That is worth big money. Even if they take it at the end of that 60 days and say, Atiba, we appreciate all your insight. We're going to run with this. You still got paid. And I would say those engagements are usually between $5,000 and $15,000. That's not a bad deal for 30 or 60 days. So you're delivering a ton of value, you're sharing your wisdom, you're getting paid to do that. But if you position it correctly from the beginning, it's a natural course of action to move right into the fractional engagement. So as you go through and you
That's
understand
awesome.
the
I want to
business,
take
you
this a little
position
bit
yourself that.
even before and for the setup of this, right? Because I know that's the question that people are going to ask. How do I set this up? And if you've listened to us or
Yep.
continue to listen to us, you'll hear us talk a lot about value in advance and giving information and knowledge and so on and so forth. And that helps prove your credibility. It helps build trust, etc. Right? The whole know, like, and trust. It helps that whole thing, getting someone to the table to actually become your client. And now we're telling you charge for the information. But here's the thing that I'm hoping that you hear. When we create a video, heck, even this one that you're watching right now or listening to, we're giving you free information, but it's very generic free information. You have to take it and apply it to your situation. Okay. We didn't just give you a strategy. That's not a strategy because it's not applied to you. If anything, you might even call it a tactic at that point because it has no personalization. And so what Dean is saying is you can in your marketing, you can talk in theory and in generalities about what you do and how you do, but that's not the specifics for
Mhm.
this company. And when you get down into the specifics of this company,
Exactly.
that's what you say, hey, that's 5 or 15 grand for you to pay for me to actually do your strategy.
Exactly right. And that's the difference, right? I can give a client a generic worksheet or somebody else's plan. It's not going to have the impact that they expect. So even if let's kind of that step back in the process as you described, we have to think about the whole strategy as it ties together to get from we're getting to know each other. The goal is for me to help you have massive outcomes 6, 12, 18 months
Mm-hmm.
down the road. That's where we're headed. And we can't get there by me just throwing generic information at you or even just doing your customized strategic plan. You've got to take action. And so I always frame the conversation from the very beginning, just like I'm in the role helping them execute. Right from the beginning. Here's how we will
Yeah.
execute the plan. Here's how I see your
Yeah.
team coming together, our team coming together. I put myself in that role, and they have to acknowledge they don't
Exactly.
have the internal expertise to execute. They have people that can do work, but to execute at a strategic level requires
They need you.
somebody they don't have, which is why they're talking with you. So when you position your strategy first approach, that's not the whole conversation. It's all about implementation, execution, results.
Yeah.
But step one is you're going to get paid to give them very specific information, advice, and a roadmap and roll right into the implementation. And I would even take it one step further. And in my agreement, in my proposal for the strategy phase, I would already have the language in there for me to function as their fractional. The only thing that just needs to be determined is the size of scope. I already know. You already know. You've done the work before. You know what your role will be like. And now it's just a case of is it 40 hours a month? Is it 60 hours a month? And you adjust your price. That's the only thing that you have a final conversation about. They've already, in essence, agreed to have you help them execute when they begin the strategy work. That's the whole strategy,
Yeah.
the whole process, still very high level, but it gives
Absolutely.
you kind of a sense of where I
Absolutely.
see you going with it.
It's interesting because the thing that we're sharing with you and really hoping that you hear is in order to make this transition into being a successful fractional, it's about how you position yourself. And how you position yourself also now means you have to change the way you see yourself. Okay. Because whatever role you were coming from before, you're no longer that role. If you were a C suite before, you're not that now. And so now you have to change the way you position yourself in order for this prospect, this client, to have the type of respect for you that they will say, yeah, here's 5 grand for the strategy, right? If you were a consultant before who was paid to, turn a widget out or fix up a problem, then yeah, it's a different way. And so that's part of the underlying of what Dean and I are hoping that you guys also did you see and feel here is I am different. In order to do this, I am not what I was before. And that transition in your mind, once you make that, that's the transition that will then, your client will see it and feel it, and their reaction to you will be so much different moving forward.
It will. It's so well said because it
Yes.
changes the tone of the conversation. It does. I'll throw one more example at our audience before we wrap it up. I do a lot of work in marketing, right? I'm not a marketing agency. I'm not a digital agency. I'm not an expert in SEO and video like you are. I do marketing strategy work. And so when I sometimes talk to a prospect, even if I've got my consulting hat on, and they've talked to a digital agency that will do all of the things, we're both using
Mm-hmm.
similar language, marketing strategy. Most marketing digital agencies are talking digital strategy. They're not talking about the trade show strategy, the PR strategy, the advertising strategy, the channel strategy. The list goes on and on and on. When I think marketing strategy, I think a holistic strategy. A digital agency is talking about digital strategy. So it's our job to communicate the breadth
Yes.
of our scope and expertise. Because as soon as they get it, they go, okay, the digital agency is going to charge me $6,000 a month to do all these things. They're going to pump out emails and they're going to pump out SEO and all the things they do. They didn't talk about any of that. He talked about a revenue
Yes.
roadmap that's going to grow our business incrementally over time because I use those words. So, as a fractional, as you sit down at the table, if you're a CFO, make sure you're not getting compared to a bookkeeping company or a CPA firm that's going to do the financials. Make sure you
Yeah.
separate yourself in the language
Absolutely.
that you use.
Absolutely. And listen, that language starts on your website, it starts on your LinkedIn profile, it starts in the content that you create. If you're not sure what your language is saying, find Dean and I on LinkedIn. Ask us. We will gladly tell you, oh, yeah, you're right on. Or what is this? And everything in between, right? Links to our LinkedIn are in the
Yep.
notes down below. Go ahead and click that. Hit us up. Tell us, you are listening to the Growth Engineers. We want to help you. He's Dean. I'm Atiba. We're the Growth Engineers. We'll see you next time.
See ya.